Hi and welcome to this week's episode of the DW podcast. For the first time I'm joined by someone that's not from the UK, so welcome. We've got Brendan from Wheatus.
Fine, thank you. Thanks for having me.
So tell us a bit about yourself then in the band.
I started the band, or started writing for a band that I had a concept of in like 94, 95, and demoed what would be our first three or some parts of our fourth record for the next 4 years, recording and re-recording, and finished our first album in 1999, early 2000, and it was released later that summer in America, and then the following March in the UK.
I suppose you're from New York originally as well. So
I am, yeah, from New York, yeah.
What was it like growing up and trying to make it as a band there? Because I suppose from an outsider looking in and being from Scotland, you almost think we think of New York as this place, the Times Square and the
right,
all these touristy places, but it must be so much different.
Well, I worked in Times Square when we got a record deal.
Sure.
I was at a job at a company called ASI, service manager for a company that did virtual private networks for Wall Street banks and stuff. And before they tried to destroy the world, although I think they were working on it the whole time. But I grew up in a place outside of New York City, about somewhat akin to where you grew up in Motherwell. It was about 30 miles or so east of the city on Long Island, on the North Shore of Long Island, in a place called Northport. And Northport was in the 70s when my parents moved there, and in the 80s it was a sort of lobster town on decline,
Sure.
like a lot of out-of-work fishermen, and it was sort of a rough place, to be honest. It wasn't very pleasant. It is now. It's become this sort of like suburban paradise these days. It's
almost
old Victorian homes that have been renovated, and
perfect vicinity for people, I suppose, commuting into the
exactly.
Manhattan.
It's a commute now. It is very much a commuter town. And I was a commuter in high school. I commuted to high school about 25 miles toward the city, at a place called Mineola, for a boys' school that I went to. It took about an hour and a half to get there if you included the walk and everything. So, there's the Scottish national flag. Everyone's marching.
As we're recording, you might not see it outside the bus, but you might hear the bagpipes. It's the Scottish Independence March, and they're hopefully expecting 100,000 in the streets. But I'm sure if you read the papers in the next few days, they'll say there was 20,000 there or so.
Yeah,
but
that's good. March it up, guys. Don't forget to take your oil with you.
Well, it's passing. What's the thoughts over there in Scottish independence, without going too political?
I think if the UK leaves the European Union, that Scotland should stay with it. That's the smart money.
Stay with the EU.
Yeah. You have the power, and you do have some nice oil resources that everyone's eyeballing, including Vladimir Putin. So you can take them with you.
Quite like to hope that one day that becomes a reality. But
Yeah.
Certainly.
You're gonna have to fight for it.
Yeah, it's not going to be easy, is it?
It's not going to be just a political debate.
Yeah.
It's gonna get nasty.
Certainly.
So
is there much talk about it over in the media? What's happening in the UK and Scotland and the
yeah,
EU?
every time the Theresa May's government has some sort of like debacle, it makes American news for a moment.
Sure.
I happen to read it a lot more than my fellow countrymen do.
Of course.
Try and follow up because we do a lot of work over here. I'm also an EU citizen. So,
Are you?
Yeah,
Okay.
dual citizen American.
Have you got family from over this way? Or?
In Ireland? Yeah.
Brilliant. Good.
Yeah. I've talked about this on the BBC. If a young band is if you don't have freedom of movement and a young band is trying to get their start,
Certainly.
Ibiza or somewhere in France might be the first place that it happens.
Sure.
Maybe in Eastern Europe even,
Yeah.
So you want to be able to get down there really fast.
Totally.
And be light on your feet, and if you have to do a work permit for every single territory and a carnet manifest for every single territory that you have to go through to get there, you're never going to get there, and your moments can pass you by, and that's something to really think about. In terms of UK music exports, they have been substantial.
Certainly.
In the last, half a century and more. So, just be careful.
We'll jump back to New York then, since you talked about exports. So you were growing up just in the outskirts of New York, and who were your musical influences? What was your...
Very much AC/DC.
Yeah.
Angus Young and his brother Malcolm.
Talking of Scottish exports right there.
Yeah, a couple of Scottish outcasts in Australia. Yeah, sure. By the time I was about 10 years old, I was really heavily into AC/DC.
Sure.
And sort of obsessed with them. There was no internet. And they were very rarely on television. It was very hard to catch AC/DC on TV.
Sure.
And there was no YouTube, so you couldn't just check it out anytime you wanted. That's when I sort of got the hunger for that whole thing.
Yeah.
Heavy music.
Sure.
I didn't like bands like Kiss. The glam stuff was right over my head. I wasn't into that. I was into Morrissey and, or I should say the Smiths at the time.
Yeah.
Later on in my high school years, I was exposed to that stuff, the Lightning Seeds and the Cure and so on. But Stone Roses a bit. But it was really the Metallica, AC/DC, and Rush early on. And also, I was always into Prince really heavily. I was checked out.
Isn't he?
Yeah, everything he ever did. Tom Petty, Willie Nelson. There was a lot of great Madonna music that came out in the late 80s and early 90s, like the song Rain. Ever hear the song Rain? Yeah, that's stuff I was really into. But when it came to practicing music in my own time, when I was 13, 14, 15, I didn't do anything on Saturday except for play guitar.
Sure.
All day. And I played guitar when I got home from school too. It was even almost too late to do it sometimes, but I did.
Did you teach yourself, or were you?
I taught myself. Yeah. I had a few lessons from a guy named Rick Helf when I was maybe 9 or 10, I guess. And he was a great guy. He just kind of taught me how to play some songs, taught me basic chord placement for Back in Black and Highway to Hell. But that was short-lived. When it came to the solos and all the Rush catalog, I was on my own for that by that time, and I taught myself how to play. My style that I have is I just sort of aping Mark Knopfler and Willie Nelson, a combo technique with the pinky and the ring finger kind of thing. So, yeah.
And when did you think, this is something that I want to do? Because if you're starting at 10, it's a young age to start.
I thought it was something I wanted to do the first time I saw Angus do his thing. Yeah, I mean, I wanted to be...
I want to be on that stage.
I thought to myself, if I could do any version of that, any scale of that, I would do it. That would be it. And I went through the sort of college preparatory track of most suburban white Americans, and wound up in university studying. I was in the pre-med program. I did 2 years in pre-med, and then I switched to history with a minor in psych, and I graduated with a degree in history, kind of focused on Russian Revolution and World War II. Good. But that stuff still interests me heavily. But the whole time music was what I was doing most of the time in my life, or most of the focal time in my life was music. By the time sophomore year rolled around in college, I had kind of faded away from the social scene and was very heavily into. I had a day job, was working up at college, and I was also. We get the Village Voice came out on a Tuesday.
Is that a local paper? Or
it was the New York City sort of cool paper.
Okay.
And it had all of the ads for musicians looking for other musicians in the back, or bands looking for guitarists or whatever else. And I had to wait until Wednesday morning because came out on a Tuesday. It didn't make its way up 3 hours away to Scranton, Pennsylvania until the next morning. But by the end of Wednesday, I had read the entire want ads for musicians and booked a whole bunch of auditions in the city. and then I would drive down after class. I can't believe I did this. I would go to class until 6 p.m. and then I would use the next 3 hours to go to New York City to have an audition, and then turn right back around and drive the other 3 hours in the other direction. I thought nothing of it.
Yeah.
I was like, that was definitely what I wanted to do. So it was pretty serious for me, music, the whole way. I would say it was like tremendously serious. I didn't know how to have a music career. Nobody in my family had anything to do with the music industry, and I didn't. I had one sort of friend of the family who was a production manager at the Nassau Coliseum, and he got me an internship there.
Brilliant.
And the deal with the internship was you also had to be on the cleaners crew, so I was cleaning up after the shows.
Sure.
And that was like kind of like my first job in music, I guess.
It's almost like earning your stripes as well. Like you can get into the music scene, but you need
Yeah.
to do the nitty gritty work as
Yeah,
well.
if you can't figure out how to pull a hot dog out of a Heineken bottle, you shouldn't be allowed to play on stage.
I'm sure it's taught you well over the years.
Yeah. But I always had a bunch of shitty jobs. I've had real hard, shitty jobs. Like my first job when I was 13, I worked in a fish market
Right.
with like lots of old men.
Brilliant.
Grumpy old salty dogs, you know.
Totally.
Yeah, so I didn't know how to have a career in music, but I had been working on it unbeknownst to myself for a very long time.
And were your family quite supportive then? I suppose if they've not been in the
As
music
much as they
industry?
could have been, you know, they didn't. You know, this working class family, they think that your father or your mother's going to be like,
You need to get a
do
job.
something I can help you with,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
Don't get involved in this shit I don't know anything about.
Totally.
So it was kind of like that. It was they were as supportive as they possibly could have been, and they're both musicians themselves, but not professionally.
Okay.
My father played drums and has a real good voice, and my mother was a guitarist in a folk band when she was in high school. She showed me the first thing on guitar that I ever learned, which was "My Girl" by the Temptations.
It's a good tune.
Yeah. So, yeah, it was an interesting sort of like ignorant career path that I was on.
It's did you well.
So far, yeah.
So when you were doing these auditions, when you were going up to New York, were you thinking, I want to join a band, or I want to create my own band, or what was your?
I didn't know. I didn't care.
Yeah.
I just wanted to play music with somebody else, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
Do you remember your first gig?
Not really. I remember. Well, so I played when I was. I guess I was 11. I played "Money for Nothing"
Okay.
in my 7th grade talent
At the
show.
school. Did you win?
I don't think there were winners or losers. I think it was
Okay.
just like, come, everybody go up and
Showcase.
do your thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I did that, and that was my sort of first like public performance on the guitar. And the next thing I remember after that would have to be probably CBGB's when I was about 19 or 18, late in my 18th year or early in my 19th, I can't remember which, but we played, my stupid hardcore band played a showcase at CBGB's.
Brilliant.
Yeah, and that was an eye-opener.
Is it almost like a way of passage if you're playing music in New York to play there? You think of Debbie Harry and the Ramones and.
You know, at the time, CB's was kind of like taken for granted. Like
Really?
you like it was like, well, the people don't realize that as venerated as it is, it was a fucking shithole, man. I mean, literally, the dog was walking around crapping on the floor all the time.
That actually
So-
happened because
yeah,
you hear these stories
yeah,
and you think,
you could
is
step on shit if you were walking through CBGB's, and it was like the floor was like this uneven plywood that had been nailed down over the years. It was like held together with, you know, solidified beer and gum and shit.
Brilliant.
The PA was the loudest, fucking rip your ears off PA you've ever heard in your life. I mean, it was just like brutal. You know, the toilets were a mess. And the dressing rooms were kind of cool, actually, because there was like these little like cubicle dressing rooms that ran down the back hallway. I think there was 3 of them. and there was a space up a back behind the stage that everyone put their gear. So like the next band that was on put their gear up on top of the behind the stage areas.
Chaos.
And the monitors were on the ceiling. There was no floor monitors on the stage at CBGB's, and it was like those
crazy.
monitors were louder than the PA. It was so loud, man. It was so loud up there. It was just insanity. And I had a like clumsy first show there. Pulled my cord out of my guitar. I was nervous as hell, you know. But still was okay. And then played there once or twice again. Saw Walt Mink there. Saw a bunch of good shows there. And then the only time Wheatus ever played CBGB's was like it was the summer of 2000, right after the record came out. And Joey Ramone invited us to open up for him, yeah. Joey Ramone and Ronnie Spector, we opened for them at CB's.
That's amazing.
And that was something else. Yeah. That was really cool.
That's bucket list stuff.
Yeah, that was pretty bucket list. And he was there, and he was just like a real soft-spoken guy. And I had bumped into him in a Radio Shack in Union Square like 4 years before that. Or maybe 3 years before that.
You were writing the album for 4 years?
Yeah, of course, yeah. And he didn't remember me from the Radio Shack store, of course, but he was just real sort of like soft-spoken, like retreating dude who was obviously not very well health-wise, and he died the next year. He died right after that. So yeah, I didn't get to know him or anything, unfortunately, but that was the only time Wheatus ever played CBGB's, was opening for Joey Ramone.
It's a good one to do, isn't it?
It's a solid.
Certainly.
Solid.
If you're going to do it, that's the way to do it.
Yeah, it is the way to do it. But anyway, so yeah, after that, sort of like the period between 95 and 99, when we signed the record deal, was I was with Phil Jimenez, our co-producer for the first record, and we had sort of gathered all of our arsenal of gear together at his apartment in Huntington, which was a little bit closer to the city than the town I grew up in, but not by much. And we recorded and re-recorded and re-recorded and re-recorded and rearranged and threw out and reestablished and tinkered with the first album for 4 years.
Did you know the sound you were looking for?
Yes. I was very sure that I wanted a hip-hop song in the rhythmic context, and I wanted somewhere between James Taylor and Metallica and AC/DC on the top. Sort of like the melodic context. So it took a long time to get that feel together.
Of course.
It was an odd recipe to try and merge. And I was really into LL Cool J and Public Enemy when I was a kid, and the hip-hop side of life, NWA as well, but more Public Enemy because they were Long Islanders.
Of course. It's almost
so
that divide,
LL
isn't it?
Cool J was from Queens, yeah. So the local hip-hop thing in New York at KRS-One as well was an early influence on me. It just, all those Public Enemy beats, those loops that they built for those records, those sounds were so cool.
Yeah.
They were just so cool. Oddly, I wasn't that into the Beasties. People have asked me before. I wasn't into Beastie Boys until Check Your Head. Okay. When they kind of went back to being a band, that's when I got into the Beasties. I wasn't a Paul's Boutique fan, I'm not going to lie. I was like, I missed it, you know, yeah. But yeah, Check Your Head was my favorite Beasties record. But I wanted Dirtbag to feel like, you know, one of our drummers, Will Tully, this drummer that we have from time to time, he says that to play Dirtbag correctly, you have to have hip-hop feet and rock and roll hands.
Not everybody's got that.
No, it's tricky. And every time we hire a new drummer to do a tour or to do a record or whatever, and we have to prepare Dirtbag for some reason, which is almost all the time.
Of course.
That one takes Dirtbag takes the longest to get through, despite all the progressive stuff that we've done on the more recent records.
Yeah.
Which is tricky, but the sort of the pop hybrid of Dirtbag's backbeat is very difficult. and we have to keep it up ourselves or we'll lose it. So, and I've been asked before, do you like performing? I said, yeah, because it's fucking hard. It's like, it's tricky.
You've achieved something. By
yeah. It's like tricky, and the crowd knows if you fuck it up. Man.
Yeah. I watched the video of you recently, and you were tuning your guitar. I better tune it for this one because people know what this sounds like.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to ask you about that song because obviously you spent 4 years writing the album, and that album in itself done amazing all over the world. But do you ever get fed up playing it, or do you ever?
No.
You sometimes hear of these bands that have got this song that's propelled them to universal stardom, and they get fed up off it.
I never get fed up.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about a first world problem for fuck's sake. I mean, I wanted to do this so bad in any context since I was so young, and Dirtbag is this like sort of weaponized piece of pop culture that clears the path for us to do this.
Yeah.
And I why get frustrated with it? No.
I was talking
no.
to a friend before I come on here who's also a big Wheatus fan. When we were really young growing up, we used to go to like your gigs and loads of other bands' gigs, kind of pop punk gigs and stuff when we were growing up.
Yeah.
And he says, that's really like a cultural imprint in our generation. It's everyone's heard it, and it's
it's interesting you say the pop punk thing. At the time, in the year 2000, there were so many 3-piece pop punk outfits from Southern California that it almost became this thing that like that's the only thing that rock music could be in that year. So of course we got lumped in, but
it's totally
that's
different.
Not what it sounds like. It doesn't sound like so. We're a New York band.
Exactly.
Dirtbag does not sound like SoCal punk in any way.
Not at all.
And it was just the timing that it came out.
Did you expect it to do so well?
No.
No.
No. I knew it was good, and I knew that it would connect on some level with people emotionally. I didn't understand how that would happen because I had been in and out of the record deal business enough times by 1999 to know that wasn't all that it took.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, in some universe, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band is sitting on a shelf and no one's ever heard it.
Yeah.
Like that's it. What it has to do with is, it's sad to say, but it's true. It's not a meritocracy. To some degree, the song has to connect. It has to be good, but that at the time was only something that could benefit you after you've lined up all the other ducks.
Sure.
So I knew that by that time already that it was very much a game of chance, and the chaos of the universe was either going to bestow us with access to people who could hear it or not.
Sure.
And Columbia Records happened to be that at the time. Obviously, the second record, they didn't hear Teenage Dirtbag, the sequel, so they weren't interested.
Yeah.
But that's multinational corporate sales for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I spoke to a band recently. It's a Scottish band called Father Son, and they were talking about they've got a great relationship with their record label, and almost that there's not too much pressure on them. But I suppose on a label like Columbia, it's it has to be number one after number one almost, or is that a bit different from that?
Yeah, pretty much. Well, what's crazy about that is that we, our first record recouped.
Yeah.
We that was unheard of. Like we spent no money on it, and it did really well. And they were like, still like, nah.
You're joking.
No, I'm not kidding, man. It's like it was real,
Yeah.
And it
you
just
must be buzzing off it, and then to hear that from them, it's a bit like, oh fuck's sake. Like,
I knew that was also possible. I mean, it surprised me, but I somewhere in the back of my head, I was cynical enough to know that could happen.
Yeah.
And when it did, I expressed concern in a meeting one time with Columbia executives about, if you're not gonna get behind our second album, I should probably go get my day job back. And I wasn't being smartass. I was being concerned. I was like really concerned.
Being realistic, yeah.
Yeah, I don't have a trust fund to sit on. I either make records that make money or I go back to work.
Yeah.
And when they heard me say that, they got pissed. I think they didn't like that. They thought that was me being disrespectful or something, and I was just being honest. And they said, you can take your damn record and get out of here. So we left with the second album.
I think that's maybe a lot to do with your upbringing as well, though. You know, you've came from, as you says, a working class background, and you know the.
Yeah, my dad sold cars, and my
Yeah.
mom worked full time as an interior decorator. You know, for wealthy people.
Yeah,
Like you know, we didn't have it like that.
Yeah.
You know. So
There's probably a lot of bands out there that would sit and think, you know, well, I've got something to fall back on after this, so I'm going to just listen to what the executives are going to tell me.
yeah, well, they're not looking out for your bank account, whether
Yeah.
you're a rich kid or not. You know. You know, to some degree, I guess it's like it's safer to get involved in music if you are a rich kid. You might not have as much to say,
Yeah.
you know, but
Almost in the days of the internet, that's, you know, I feel that we're getting into this culture that to take the risk and become a musician, you know, it's almost going to get to it as you have to have that money to start off with, you know. And
yeah,
it's just a bit of a shame, isn't it?
I mean, I worked my ass off at day jobs and scrounged and saved for microphones and cables and things, and I spent no money on. I mean, I haven't bought underwear since I was 14. You
Yeah.
know, like I mean, like I save whatever I don't absolutely need to spend money on. I save it, and
Sure.
and it's because I want to find, you know, that Groms compressor on eBay from 1978, that one that they made that year that I know sounds really good. It's not worth a lot of money, but like that's what
It means more to you.
It's a tool
Yeah.
for me to do something. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and it's like you have your little obsessions and you figure out how to make them real, I guess. And that can be a music career, perhaps, you know. I guess if your instincts are sharp enough, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, moving on from that first album, obviously the second one, you didn't do this, but I feel with some of your other albums, you've obviously done the pay as much as you like. You know,
I suggested that to Sony on our second album. I said, why don't you just print up 1 million copies, send them to the stores, and give them away on the shelves? and they were like, what?
Slapping.
No. And I was like, well, I mean, like, that's what's going to happen anyway. You know? And we did it on our website, and then Radiohead did it also. I think they might have beat us by a few months or something, but we were trying to get that going for a long time. There are a few accountants and executives at Sony who do remember me saying that in 2002, give the record away.
Bet you wish they'd listened at the time, though.
Yeah, they thought I was fucking crazy. They were like, get this asshole out of here right now.
Totally.
So, you know.
Is that a reason why you do so many live shows then? Because the sales of CDs are on the decline? Or?
No, we don't. I mean, we don't make money when we come over here. We subsidize it with publishing income from Teenage Dirtbag. So every time somebody rents Loser on Netflix, we get a little trickle of money that pays for this tour bus, and then we come over here and we do 35 shows.
Right.
You know, and we're always in the hole.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's £30,000, sometimes it's 60,000, but
That's for the love of doing it. Then it's
we're not doing this to be rich.
Yeah.
You know, even though we're sitting on a beautiful tour bus, this thing does not belong to me. It's temporary.
Because Dirtbag was in the film Loser, obviously, as you touched on there, but there was another film recently, was it Bullying, or was that a different song?
Bully had a version from the Scala Choir.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you get these requests coming in from films, do you think it has to tie in with what I'm looking for, or would you just say, go on?
I've said no to a handful of things over the years that I wasn't crazy about, but most of the people who reach out and want to use Dirtbag for something are emotionally connected to the content, so they get it right somehow.
Sure.
Yeah.
What's your favourite Wheatus track?
That's an interesting question. Right now, this is like kind of a draw between the song Valentine, which is the title track from our 6th studio album, and two of the songs from the new record, a song called Lullaby, which is already on Spotify, and then a song called Michelle, which is not yet. And we have been playing both live. So, yeah.
I suppose when you've got 6 studio albums, when you're coming to write a set list,
we don't write set lists.
Do you not? No.
No, we let the crowd call them.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Every show.
Every show. We haven't written a set list for a very long time. We had a set list for the Busted tour because we had to keep a tight clock.
Yeah.
But aside from that, our club gigs, we haven't done set lists for club gigs in maybe 12 or 14 years,
Right.
maybe. Something like that.
Good. Did you ever come off stage thinking, oh, I wish I'd played that song and no one asked for it? Or
Yeah, sometimes there's a little bit of like, oh man, more than not, it's the kid who is shouting a song too close to the end for us to squeeze it in.
Yeah.
That's the real problem.
you
He's
feel-
waited too long and he's finally
Totally.
giving it up. But
you don't want that kid getting home thinking, oh no, they never
yeah, it's
played
like,
that
oh, we
one.
gotta play Dirtbag now, man. You know, should have said that earlier.
Aye, exactly.
But that's a little bit of a regret sometimes.
What were Busted like?
Great guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, James is a friend of mine. We met in 2005. Wrote a bunch of songs together over the years. We have similar points of view on inspiration, he and I. And we kind of muse together on things in the same way. But yeah, Busted were really good to us. They're just friends. They're just like other musician friends, you know. It was they were wearing a big responsibility doing that reunion tour. It was like a lot of pressure. I watched it every night. They had a lot of work to do on that. They were running around like lunatics.
Really?
Yeah, it's a lot of material that they played, and a lot of production, a lot of having to give the crowd their money's worth. You know,
They smashed it though. It
they
seems
did.
Like they sold
They
out
hit
every
it out of
night
the
and,
park.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think they've maybe done 2 nights in Glasgow. I could be wrong with that.
No, I remember we did the one.
Just the one.
They may have done 2 on their theater tour. They did.
Okay, sure.
But this arena wise, it was
Just the one.
just the one.
I think it's nice to hear that bands are taking their friends out on tour with them, because I know from the music industry at the moment it's almost like there's so much pressure from agents and record labels that you have to take this next.
Well, you said a mouthful there.
Yeah.
Me and James have been talking about trying to do that kind of thing for over a decade.
Yeah.
And it finally happened. And it was just his insistence and his vision. He kept saying to me, man, when you play Dirtbag last, it's going to bring the crowd up to this spot. And then we'll have them from that spot. We need them to be at that spot to make it worthwhile. So like I agreed. I talked to him a lot about like how we do things and how Busted does things. And that it really would be a nice dovetail if we could get that together. And we talked about that for years. Over a decade we talked about that. And then it actually happened.
I'm guessing it didn't happen for those reasons. They were saying that you have to take X, Y, and Z out on tour with you rather than.
It's always some political, half-assed political arrangement. Who suffers is the fans.
Yeah.
Because they wind up having to sit through something they're not interested in, and that does not match the vibe of what's happening. So, yeah, but
And I suppose
but
the support bands suffer as well, don't they? Because they want to be
Sure
playing in front of
do.
a crowd that listen to them. And
the last thing you want to be is a support band on a tour that you're not welcome on by the fans.
Yeah.
I've had that experience. That's a real waste of time, and you sense it. And you want to apologize every night and say, look, I know you're not into our music. I'm really sorry. There's nothing I can do about this. This is like out of my hands, And complaining about being on stage in front of people is an asshole thing to do anyway. But the fact of the matter is that people work really, really hard for that ticket money. And if they have to spend it, they want to spend it well. And if they get something like that, that's just a piece of bullshit from somebody's like back room, dealings, and isn't quality or isn't like making the experience better, I would be pissed off too.
yeah.
Sometimes tickets are really expensive these days. It's insane.
Totally, they just keep going up and up, don't they?
Yeah,
you look
man.
at these tickets from 10 years ago and it was
Yeah.
half the price, but
Well, what you need is a proper fan boycott. But it might be hard to pull that off.
totally. What's the best tour you've done? Who's your favourite bands that you've toured with over the years?
We toured with Eve 6. We toured with Harvey Danger, SR-71, Zebrahead, OPM. That was early on in the process.
They're still marching.
They're
still
marching away. There's a lot of them. Maybe they do have 100,000 people today.
I'm telling you, Brendan, they won't report that in the press.
No, they won't, will they?
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I interrupted
That's
you.
fine. That's fine. It's worth it.
I suppose on this tour you've picked your own supports as well, haven't you?
Yeah, we've toured with Mike Doty.
Okay.
We've toured with Bowling for Soup and James's other band, Son of Dork.
Yeah. Was Sonny Dork on the Bowling for Soup tour as well?
Yeah, they were.
Yeah, that's right. I remember.
Yeah, that was great. An army of freshmen who were dear
Crazy,
friends of
aren't
ours.
they? Yeah. Is it Chris that's the front man
Yeah,
for them?
yeah, Chris J is amazing.
They always tour with Bowling for Soup, don't they?
Yeah, they've done a few. They've done a few
Yeah.
tours with Soup. Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of the perfect Bowling for Soup opener.
Yeah, totally. And he's a live wire, isn't he? He's such
Chris,
a great frontman.
Yeah, he's a great frontman. I watched him do in Yeovil. I watched him do a front flip off of 2 stories above the crowd down into the pit and fall flat on his back into the crowd, and it was amazing.
Agony.
Well, no, he didn't get hurt. They caught him.
Did they?
Yeah, they all caught him. It was crazy, man.
Do you not think I'm going to try that next time round?
Fuck that. No way. Life's dangerous enough, man. I got to sing like a girl tomorrow. I can't be doing that shit.
What have you got lined up for the next few months? Because you're non-stop, aren't you?
Yeah, we're touring for until June 2nd. And we'll go home that week and then try and recuperate for a while. And then I have to get started on re-recording, finishing up the re-record of album 1.
Because it's 20 years, isn't it?
It's 20 years, and we got a 20-song version of it.
Brilliant.
It's prepped, so for the year 2020.
Added new tracks in then?
Yeah.
Yeah. Brilliant.
There are songs that over the years kind of felt more like they belonged on album 1, and we just didn't do anything with them because they had that vibe. Would have stuck out like a sore thumb on what we were working on at the time. So there's 20 tunes.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Are you going to tour that as well?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, everywhere anyway.
Yeah, we'll be back. I think autumn of 2020 we'll be back.
God, I can imagine you'll be out for the whole year almost if you're...
Yeah, possibly. I'm not sure we can take that kind of abuse, but possibly.
How do you manage?
I'm getting old. I'm going to be 46 when we do that.
Really?
Yeah.
Suppose you still connect with the songs, or you wouldn't play them though?
Oh yeah, I'll still play them. Yeah. There'll never be a piece of our material that I don't play. I didn't write the song "Punk Ass Bitch" on our first record, so we don't really play that one because it isn't my composition.
Okay.
Nobody in the band can claim that composition, so
Sure.
we don't. We blow that one off. We do sometimes play the Jackie Chan cartoon version for a laugh, which is fun. But it's not really truly a Wheatus catalog piece for live touring, so we just don't. But everything else is on the table.
Brilliant.
And it's a little scary.
Does it worry you?
It's like 80 songs.
Yeah.
It's like I got to remember a lot of lyrics, man.
Do you ever forget them?
From time to time, I fumble through something here.
I bet there's that guy in the front row singing the right words back to you as well.
No, well, sometimes they if I watch somebody else singing the wrong words, I'll get it wrong. That happens. That happens.
As you go to these gigs and people are trying to sing along, and you just see them moving their mouth, and you know that they
Exactly,
don't really know the words.
but they're having a good time.
Exactly.
Just don't focus on what they might be saying.
What are you expecting for the Glasgow show tonight then?
I fucking love playing Glasgow. It's since the Barrowlands in 2001. It's been one of those places that we just always have a great time in. Crowds in Glasgow will not let you have a bad show. They will not have it.
Totally. We hear that, we go to gigs ourselves, we play music and stuff, and you hear all these bands touring and saying, "Oh, Glasgow's the best crowd that you'll play to," and I think if you're Scottish, you sometimes think, "Aye, very good." They're just saying that.
Yeah,
but is there a bit of truth?
It's true.
Yeah.
Well, Scotland and Wales, there are parts of Wales where the same experience is available.
How does it compare to the States?
We just toured America. We just did a month and a half in the States with Mike Doty, and I think that the American crowds, they watch us play a Rush cover and they watch us do our sort of progressive rock stuff, and they're thinking like, this is the Teenage Dirtbag band? Like, what the hell?
It's so far removed from that first album.
Yeah, and I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
That's a very interesting, it's almost like you're having like a seminar or something.
But you're 20 years older, your music's going to change over the years.
Yeah, it's never going to, that was the thing, that was the problem with the only problem with Teenage Dirtbag for some people is that there was no sequel. And there cannot be.
No. How'd you
Why would you do that? Like, there shouldn't have been no Star Wars sequel. Should have never happened either, man. Like, come on. Don't do that, It's fine.
Yeah.
Just leave it like it is. It means something to people, and that means more than whatever else you have to say on the matter.
Totally. What's the future for you then after the 20th anniversary? Will you just keep going, keep
Yeah, we're
going
to finish up album 7, which is really heavy. Like I said, there's 3 songs prepared for it in the set. It's all sort of metal tonalities.
Good.
plugged into different genres. So like a pub classic sing-along kind of song, and then a sort of 1930s jazz standard
Brilliant.
performed with metal tones, and then like a sort of penny whistle doo-wop song performed with metal tones. That kind of thing.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Thanks very much for your time.
Thank you.
And good luck with the show tonight.
Yeah, man, it's gonna be fun. I'm looking forward to it.
Thanks very much to everyone that's watched this episode of the DW podcast. I hope you've enjoyed it. Thanks very much to Brendan for having us on their tour bus.
No problem.
And taking the time before the show. If you've not seen the DW podcast before, please go out and check out the previous episodes. And we'll see you again soon.
Thanks,
Cheers.
guys.